الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب وقفينا من بعده بالرسل وآتينا عيسى ابن مريم البينات وأيدناه بروح القدس أفكلما جاءكم رسول بما لا تهوى أنفسكم استكبرتم ففريقا كذبتم وفريقا تقتلون وقالوا قلوبنا غلف بل لعنهم الله بكفرهم فقليلا ما يؤمنون صدق الله العظيم. Regarding ayat number 87 of Surat al-Baqarah, the bayan or discussion regarding Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam was going on. And in particular, the topic related to the Ashrat al-Sa'a, the signs of the Day of Judgment. There are two types of signs when we come to the Ashrat al-Sa'a. There are the Ashrat al-Sughra, those signs that are the minor signs. And then we have the Ashrat al-Kubra, the major signs. Many of the minor signs, they are already going on in our lives. Some of those that in the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam have been mentioned right before, if you read the vast majority of the ahadith, right before the Ashrat al-Kubra, right before the major signs have been mentioned in the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Some of the minor signs in great detail have been given. There are ahadith that speak about 20, 30, 40, some ahadith even mention up to 70 signs, minor signs of the Day of Judgment. Some of these are very amazing when we start to understand how they apply in our lives today. We have been told in various ahadith, many of the minor signs that in our day-to-day lives have become almost a norm. We don't even pay attention to it or don't even realize it. A very lengthy hadith mentioned in Sunan Abu Dawood. And also if you take all of the Sahih that you find also in Sahih Bukhari and in Tirmidhi and many others, you find very, very lengthy hadiths related to many of these signs. Some of them in great detail. We will mention just a few because we got to the aspect and the point of Imam Mahdi and we mentioned some of his qualities. There are some particular signs of the Day of Judgment that will happen right before his coming. Many of these are already prevalent. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us in a very lengthy hadith, إِذَا اتُّخِذَ الْفَيْءُ دُوَلًا, time will come when Mali Ghanima will be considered as personal wealth. And amana, trust, will be taken. So when you will entrust someone with something, the person you entrust, that person will consider that trust as if it is his own luck or good luck. He'll take it, he consider it his, use it how he wants. Zakatu maghrama, zakah, it will become a burden. A man will listen to his wife and disobey his mother. This indirectly doesn't mean that listening to wife is something bad. It means that people will come, a time will come where mothers will be telling their sons not to marry a woman, but the man, he will not listen to his mother. We see this happening in our society and in many societies. It's become a norm almost. And then we're further told That a man, adna sadiqahu wa aqsa abahu, he'll bring his friends close, he'll alienate his father. Wine will be drunk openly. Loud sounds will appear in the masajid. ظهرت الأصوات في المساجد. It is amazing that the word aswat is mentioned. Because it's not just shouting or sounds of human beings, but it means sounds. Nowadays, mashallah, you start salah, then the whole world remembers to call you. Especially if you forgot to put your phone, if you forgot to silence your phone, then everyone remembers to call you. And as soon as salah is done, then you call back the person, so I forgot what I was going to tell you, but it was very important later on. Just to disturb the salah. And sometimes even in the salah, we make an announcement before the salah, turn your cell phones off, and as soon as you say Allahu Akbar, the phone goes off. So sounds, subhanallah, and some of them, they're not ringtones. Some of them, mashallah. For lack of a better word.
Don't say it.
You have, just to be on the nice side. Sometimes they compete with the imam in tilawat of the Quran. So subhanallah, what is going on? So these aswat and these sounds appear. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us, ظهرت القينات والمعازف, these musical instruments will appear, dancing women will become prevalent. وَلَعَنَ آخِرُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ أَوَّلَهَا, the later generations of this ummah will curse their predecessors. See the next generation, what they consider of their elders. Then in other hadith we're told that a time will come where a man's thigh will give him information about his home and about the whole world. Just check where you keep your cell phones, ya subhanallah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that people will talk to alat, instruments. Go back 20, 30 years, you know how awkward it is to hold a metal thing and talk to it. Nowadays, mashallah, how many things we're talking instruments, Now our cars are talking to us. I was one of my friends, he got me I was going somewhere, long journey out of town. So he got me the latest BMW. It was one of those high-level ones, 7 Series or something. And he told me very clearly, he said, you go on a long journey, so if it starts talking to you, don't get scared, I said, okay, well, what could possibly happen? I'm all alone in the car, I'm driving. And I think I kind of got tired of driving 4 hours, so the car started talking to me. Said, you look tired, would you like to pull over? SubhanAllah, I recited Ayat al-Kursi. I thought there was a jinn. That's when I realized it. So instruments start talking to you, subhanAllah. So these are the kind of things that the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam related to Ashratul Sa'a. They told us that time will be shortened. A year will pass like a month will pass like a week, and a week will pass like a day. And a day will pass like a flash of fire. Now this could be literal time, but this is actually talking about travel and journey. What used to take a year of journey, now you can cover within 27, 30 days. People have covered the whole world within a month. And the travel of a month can now be covered within a week. And the travel of a week you can cover in a day. Back then, if you had the best horse and the best ride, you could probably go about 100 miles if you were lucky. Then the horse was tired and you were also finished. And that's if you were really good at it. So hardly in the week you could cover 400, 500 miles. After that you were finished. Now 400, 500 miles, you sit in your car, mashallah, 400 miles is nothing. Straight in one day we can cover. The journey of one day used to be around 60 to 100 miles. Now in 1 hour, a little over an hour, it's like a flash of fire. A flash of fire usually lasts about an hour, a little over 1 hour. So this is the journey, how amazing. It has been mentioned to us how the distances will be shortened. So this is how we've been shown the Ashratul Sa'a. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us that a time will come where the desert Bedouins, who don't even have sandals, but they graze camels, they will compete with one another in sky-rise buildings. They'll be competing. There'll be this amazing competition going on. وَحَتَّى يَتَطَاوَلُ النَّاسُ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. That people will be competing who can make the higher building, the taller building. And you go see who are the top in that competition, go see the Arab countries, one after the other. Each one is announcing the next project, the taller building or the tallest building. And the next, after a few years, another project, another project. And all of a sudden you start to realize what this competition is. And we've been told at that time also, تَكْثُرَ الزَّلَازِلِ, there'll be a lot of earthquakes that will appear. There'll be a lot of earthquakes, and I'll come back to this part. We've also been told تَكْثُرَ الْحَرْجِ, Al-Harj, mass killing will take place. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they asked, وَمَا الْحَرْجُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, what is this Harj ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told them it would be killing, death and death. Back then, if you actually check the dictionary meaning of the word Al-Harj, it means a violent protest that results in the death of many. This is the literal translation of the word Al-Harj. You see these protests that happen. How many all over the world, they start springing up. And how many have lost their lives because of these protests, these violent protests. And then at this time, it will be the chaotic time. And we went over some of these signs of the coming of Imam Mahdi, some of his qualities, a little bit about his background also, that he'll be raised in the company of very righteous people, specifically the ulama and the muhaddithin, in the company of very, very righteous people. It is also not mentioned that he will ever become a scholar of deen, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless him with immense wisdom to be able to carry out his task. And he will not know that he is the Mahdi, though he'll have all the qualities. Everyone else will be telling him. The group of ulama and awliya, they'll be the ones telling him. They won't necessarily tell him, but they'll be able to see his signs and qualities. After it will be announced that he will be the Mahdi, then it is also mentioned that before this time, before the coming of this time, that there will be a dukhan that will cover the earth. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that there will be a dukhan. There will be smoke that will appear and it will cover up the earth. In one hadith mentions 3 massive earthquakes, one in the east, one in the west, and one in the center of the world. Which means that, and from these earthquakes will come a kind of smoke, which will cover up the world. Nowadays we know the impact of what nuclear war can do, and what kind of smoke it can give off. It may have been difficult to understand that 1400 years ago, but today we understand the devastation it can have. When you read the ahadith related to the Mahdi, you realize there are very, very specific countries that are spoken about. It's not like the whole world is being spoken about. Anyhow, the Mahdi will come, he will unite the ummah, and he will make efforts. He will go into particular places where the ummah has been scattered. He will go to Turkey, he will go to what is known as Khorasan, present-day Iran and Afghanistan, that area. He'll go to various particular places and he'll be making arrangements to unite the ummah. And during this time, an announcement will come out that Dajjal has appeared. So Imam Mahdi will go quickly to Khorasan, in that area where Dajjal is supposed to appear. Now, a few things about Dajjal. There are many, many ahadith relating to Dajjal. And you can go over some of his qualities. But we're in a very strange era, so let's speak about what we're dealing with today. The hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam speak about Dajjal having immense control. There are particular things that he have control of. Those hadith do not speak that these things will be miracles. It says that this will be a fitan. It will be a trial for the believers. It says that Dajjal, you have very, very particular abilities. And through that, he will test the believers. The mu'mineen will go through immense difficulty at his hands. Some of these, and I'm just going to go over, and I'll try my best to relate them to the modern day. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that Dajjal, he'll control the weather. He'll be able to make it rain in an area or stop a rain from going to an area. So an area that will have a drought, he'll be able to bring rain. And through that, the drought will be gone. And an area that will have a drought, he will be able to, an area that will be flourishing if the people do not believe in him. So he'll be able to stop the rain and bring a drought in those areas. You have this kind of power. He'll control the rain. In the early 1900s, there was, we're going to talk about this ability a little bit. In the early 1900s, there was a scientist by the name of Nikola Tesla. And I'm not specifically talking about the company Tesla, though his descendants have started that company. But he was a very, very intellectual scientist. And one of the things was that he went to Alaska. There he saw the Aurora Borealis. We call them Northern Lights. For those who have been to Alaska, there's During the winter time, there's a beautiful scenery of lights that happen in the sky. So this scientist, he had a dream that, or he had this vision that he wanted the whole world to see how beautiful the aurora borealis is. He wanted the whole world to witness the phenomena of the northern lights. It's a kind of rainbow thing that goes in the sky, very, very beautiful. It's a natural phenomenon. So this scientist, he was also an inventor. So he started inventing certain technologies to be able to portray that kind of light in various parts of the world. He was not successful, but some of the things that he was successful in early research, in the early 1900s, one of the things that he was successful in is that he was able to produce electromagnetic waves. And through this, he was able to understand, or at least open up the scientific community to the power and effect of electromagnetic waves. Now, these are some of the very waves that we have on a very, very minuscule level. These are the waves that we have radio waves that we're able to send. We're able to make phone calls, internet, and all of these things. Those were in technology. They can tell you much more in great detail how these waves work, the kind of benefits that, how far we humans have come because of that research. But in the 1930s, right before 1930, some of the scientists, they started, when they were experimenting with these electromagnetic waves, they realized that in the layer where the clouds are, you're able to send these waves up into the sky and cause a disturbance in the clouds. These waves, because the clouds also produce a type of wave. So they were able to send these waves into the sky and affect clouds. And they didn't know how far this could go. But at that time, their theory was a kind of strong theory, was that we can actually manipulate the clouds. So the world nations, they got together and actually had signed an accord that these nations will not use weather manipulation as a means of warfare against one another. This was signed in early 1930s. And this is open data, you can research it. So, and I don't have time to go into great detail, I'm just explaining to you the very, very surface level of weather manipulation. During this time, this research kept going, and in the early 1970s, 1980s, there was a project that was put together in Alaska known as the HAARP project, H-A-A-R-P, HAARP, Hyperactive Aurora Research Project. It was a project where they were able to beam up into the sky in the billions of gigawatts, and they were able to cause massive disruptions in the weather. These were used through very massive antennas that were placed in Alaska. This is 1970s, 1980s. During this time, one of the things that happened was that when they were able to build these antennas, and the first time they shot the waves into the sky, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran that He has created a system in this world, وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الرَّجْعِ, that the sky or the heaven, it has this effect that whatever you shoot up into it, it comes right back down. It returns whatever hits it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that He's created a system around this world. Whatever hits that, it bounces off. We have certain deadly sun rays and gamma rays and X-rays that hit the earth coming from the sun, but it bounces right off. But that's from the outside. Also from the inside, if we shoot anything up into the sky, it also bounces back. After a certain point, when you get to a certain point, it bounces back. So when these waves were shot into the sky, these were very, very powerful waves. These waves were shot back down. And one of the things that happened was that it triggered a 4.0 earthquake. An earthquake, 4.0 on the Richter scale. Quite a powerful earthquake. At that time, that was a very, very powerful earthquake. So the scientists, out of fear, they said, okay, we don't know what we're playing with. Let's do some more research before we get into this. It so happened that the spy community ended up spreading that research. And in 1990, it became aware that the same project the Chinese had, Russians had, all of a sudden now it became a race who can control this technology first. So now it wasn't so much more to the deadly impact it had, it was more towards who can have control over it first. That is why now we see تَكْثُرَ الزَّلَازِلِ. You see so many earthquakes appear on a very, very high magnitude. Now no one can confirm anything, but there are speculations that this may be an attempt to control the weather, but at the same time it is causing this kind of impact in the world. So this was the early research that was done. Now, of course, we're in 2019, going on to 2020. The research has gone to a point where they're almost to the point they're able to control weather. And they're able to have certain effects. They call it global, now they have names for it also, global warming and whatever else is going on. These are just a ruse for whatever is really happening. Now, I'm not in any way denying global warming. We have destroyed this world beyond repair, okay? There is a certain system known as global warming. And it's not necessarily only caused by our vehicles, because during the World War II, we have been known to test many, many weapons, nuclear weapons, and most of them were tested up in the atmosphere. Our cars and vehicles didn't make holes in the sky, okay? Many of these weapons did. So anyhow, a lot of these things have already been there, but this weather manipulation has been there and it is happening, and it's coming to a point where they're able to control it to some degree. When it says that Dajjal, he'll control the weather, this is in essence, the research has already begun. And there are efforts in controlling this to a much greater degree. And when Dajjal will come, it'll be to a point where he'll be the only one that'll have control over this. Again, speaking on a very, very technological basis, it may be an AI, an artificial intelligence that Dajjal will control, and he'll be the only one who will have access to it. And those who are in the technology field, they can understand what specific passwords or codes or fingerprints, nowadays with fingerprints or with eye prints, that's enough to trigger it or to cause it to go. Anyone else tries it, it won't work. So a time will come where Dajjal, he will have this level of control over the weather. This is one. The second effect and impact that Dajjal will have is that he will have his own Jannah and his own Jahannam with him. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us that which is Jannah in essence is actually Jahannam. And that which is Jahannam, which is Dajjal's fire, in essence is actually Jannah. In the 21st century, there's a lot of research in what is known as VR, virtual reality. Many of the gaming systems and gaming consoles that a lot of our youth are involved in, they're progressing over time. It's coming to a point where it is getting to the level of virtual reality, where there was a time where we had 2D, 2-dimensional, and 3-dimensional, now 4D came. It was an amazing system to know and see something in 4 dimensions. Just recently in China, they had a display of 6D. And it was a very, very amazing scene in the theater. They were displaying, and the wolves that they were displaying actually came on into the crowd, and people felt like the wolves were touching them and messing with them. It came to a point of reality. And this is nothing but virtual effects. Of course, to a very, very high level magnitude. So a time will come where Dajjal will have a fire and he will have a paradise, but this will be nothing more than virtual reality. But it will have an impact. And it will impact you on a physical level. So when Dajjal will throw someone in the fire, they will really die. But they'll go to paradise because they opposed Dajjal or they faced Dajjal. So Dajjal, through this kind of effect, he'll be able to make people worship him. And he'll tell the people to worship him. And anyone that worships him, so they'll have this paradise, this utopia. And anyone who does not worship him, they'll be thrown into that fire. Now another reality about his paradise, we know about the fire, the effect of the fire. Coming to his paradise, there has been a lot of research also on the effect that the kind of thoughts we're able to put into human minds. One on the physical level, that Dajjal will have this paradise. On the other level is it has a very, very high level of addiction. Now they have a new disease in this field of psychology, as known in simple terms as gaming addiction, where there are addicts who are addicted to playing games. And they play games not for 2 hours or 3 hours, but some of them are known to play continuously for 10 hours, 15 hours. There have been some who actually played over 24 hours, all the way up to 30 hours, and as soon as they put the game down, they died. Their body was not able to take it. But it's a very high level of addiction that has started. With the youth, when they're not monitored, it can even kill them. But this is the effect that games have when we're not directly involved in it. When you get to the VR, the virtual reality, one of the things that a lot of the governments and the technology companies are also afraid of is that if they bring this out, it can cause mass death. Because all of a sudden the line between reality and virtual reality gets blurred. And the level of addiction it has on the human mind, the dopamine that it gives off, the dopamine is a kind of chemical in the human mind that causes us to become happy. So levels of dopamine that it gives off, people get addicted to it very, very quickly. And without it, it's almost like an addict, a drug addict getting off of drugs. So this is the impact that this kind of virtual reality has. So the Dajjal, he will also have this type of paradise. And he'll give off a dopamine in the minds of the people. It'll make people very, very happy. And not only happy, they'll become addicted to it. So in the Dajjal, people will not be able to see any way outside of worshipping the Dajjal or following the Dajjal. You have this kind of control over the people. And again, I'm talking on the 21st century. Maybe in the future we'll go into other technologies. They'll be able to explain the effects and the things that the Dajjal will really control, what kind of control he has. So these are just two things that we described, inshallah, in the coming bayanat. We'll go over a few more of his effects. One is the impact of him controlling weather, and the other is this virtual reality, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned these things in the ahadith 1400 years ago. Told us this is the kind of power that the Dajjal will have. And we see the system right before us. For those who are familiar with the news and keep up with technology, and most of you, mashallah, in this community are in technology, if you do a little bit of research, you'll be surprised how far we have come. So this is enough for today. The Dajjal will have other abilities also, inshallah. We'll go over some of them before we continue within this ayah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالقرآن وزين أخلاقنا بالقرآن ونجنا من النار بالقرآن وادخلنا في الجنة بالقرآن. اللهم اجعل القرآن لنا في الدنيا قرينا وفي القبر مونسا وعلى الصراط نورا وفي الجنة رفيقا ومن النار سترا وحجابا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.